Welcome, welcome, and thank you for joining me in this session. Allow me to share my screen with you now. I very much likely will lose you, but I hope you can hear me and actually see my screen. My name is Jimena Lizalde. I am Richmond's ELT manager. And what I want to do today is share with you findings of a small piece of research we've just recently conducted on bilingual education. Bilingual education is most certainly a buzzword in Brazil nowadays. In other countries like Colombia, where I live in, they understood years ago that the relationship between the educational and economic systems can become stronger through processes of bilingual education. Now, the idea of bilingual education varies, as well as how it is perceived and understood. In an attempt to have a better idea of what it implies, as content and materials developers, here at Richmond, we recently conducted a survey among parents who are the ultimate decision makers when it comes to selecting a bilingual school for their children. What we discovered has implications on the bilingual education models schools adopt, which we think are worth reflecting on. And that is why we wanted to share our findings with you today. We interviewed parents in almost all countries in Latin America. I can't remember the exact number of parents right now who are looking for a bilingual school for their children or who already have children studying in a bilingual school. First of all, we wanted to know what parents understand by bilingual education and what they expect from an institution. And even though each parent, each one seemed to have a distinctive definition of the term bilingual education, we did discover that they look for certain specific characteristics when it comes to selecting a bilingual school for their children. In no particular order, the characteristics of a bilingual school that parents mentioned more often are that the whole school, which includes all staff, has to be involved in English teaching. They also mentioned a unified English teaching method based on the Common European Framework or any other measurable and verifiable set of standards. In other words, parents want proof, they want evidence that their children are learning English and will become bilingual. Another thing that they mentioned is that they expect teachers to have an advanced level of English, which was no surprise. Also, the use of English in daily life, in daily life activities promoted by teachers and the whole school. They also mentioned, which came as no surprise as well, a high number of contact and English instruction hours. They also mentioned reading in English as a habit promoted in school, but that children take home naturally. They mentioned they expected a combination of native and non-native speaker English teachers. And they mentioned international exams as part of the process, as validation, as evidence and proof that their children are truly learning English and will become bilingual. We then proceeded to find out of these 8 factors here or characteristics, which are the 3 least and the 3 most important for parents. And this is what we discovered, and this is where we started reflecting. The 3 least important factors for parents when it comes to their understanding of bilingual education and what makes a bilingual school were that schools offer a combination of native and non-native English teachers. This came a little bit as a surprise to us because this is only important to 4% of the parents we talk to. And it makes perfect sense if you then look at the most important factors for parents. 61% of them told us that for them, as long as English teachers have a proven advanced level of English, it is not important if they're native speakers or not. This led us to reflect on the implication this has on the bilingual education models that schools adopt. And we started asking questions like, do schools offer a combination of native and non-native English speakers? What's the balance if they do? For those who are offering non-native, is their advanced level of English verifiable? Is it certified? And if so, by who? And do schools really need to have a high number of native speakers, English teachers, to teach the language, and so on? But let's see what other things, what the other factors are. We discovered that reading as a habit that students take home is only relevant for 22% of the parents we talk to. This made us think, and it maybe implies that parents still expect for skills development to happen in the school rather than at home. And in some cases, this has to do with the fact that not all parents are bilingual themselves. And they still believe that there's not much they can do to support their children's learning process at home. This also has implications on schools. If parents expect all skills development to happen at schools, schools need to make sure they're offering strong, sound, in this particular case, reading programs. So here's something else to reflect on. Do schools actually offer strong, solid reading programs? How is reading skills development measured and assessed? Can schools provide parents with evidence that their children are getting better at reading in English year after year? And so on. Let me show you the rest. The third least important factor for parents is that the school has a unified English teaching methods. Parents don't know much about teaching English or English language teaching methodology. They trust the school to work under an effective method. All they want is for their children to learn enough English as to become bilingual. The implication here could be that it is actually up to each school to adopt a teaching and evaluation methodology that produces results that can be translated into proof and evidence for parents of whether their children are being successful in learning English or not. And again, possible reflections around this that come to mind are something like, is my current English teaching model offering parents enough evidence of their children's progress and success at the different stages of the process? Are the result and evidence product of my current English teaching method or model good enough compared to the results of similar schools and international standards, and so on? But let's see what else is important for parents besides teachers having an advanced level of English. 57% of parents expect, and this again was no surprise, a high number of hours of instruction in English. And please notice the preposition, in English, not of English. What this means is that parents are expecting more than English, only English, to be taught in English. So possible reflections that come to mind here are, what other subjects are bilingual schools offering in English? Should or could they offer more? And if so, which ones? So parents are indeed expecting students to be exposed to the language in more than only the language class itself, and so on. And finally, 48% of the parents we talked to for them, it is important that in everyday activities, English is promoted. And this makes perfect sense if we consider that the reason why parents choose a bilingual institution for their children is because they want them to learn the language well enough as to be able to use it in their future social, academic, and work life. And also because real language use is proof, is evidence that their children are learning or have learned the language well enough. So potential questions for reflection here are whether schools actually promote the use of English for activities other than the ones related to the learning of the language itself. And if not, what can the schools and teachers do to promote the use of English in everyday activities, and so on. In the end, what we concluded is that the parents' expectation, a clear impact on the bilingual education models adopted by schools. Knowing and understanding these expectations can help schools make the changes and adjustments necessary to meet these expectations, to consolidate or improve their current bilingual model, and even to transition to another model. Here in Colombia, where I live, there are 3 clear bilingual education models, the ones that you can see on my screen now. These education models proposed by the Ministry of Education in Colombia. Whichever schools are at, they need to make sure that these characteristics do match parent expectations. And understanding these expectations, and this is why we conducted the survey in the first place, not because we are an educational institution, we are content developers and materials creators, but we are in constant and permanent touch with the schools that consume our contents, and we accompany along their processes to transition to more bilingual education models. And we truly believe that it is important to make sure that the characteristics of the bilingual education model schools select match parent expectations, because again, they're the ultimate decision makers when it comes to selecting bilingual schools for their children. And a lot of this has to do with proof, evidence of what is happening and the results produced by our bilingual education models. So the big question here is, what adjustments or changes could be made if we understand what parents actually expect? And they do expect to have proof, to be able to see evidence that the model is effective and that their children are actually becoming or will become bilingual at the end of the learning process. Maybe the question is, are we ready to transition to another model, to a more bilingual model? All these questions and reflections, again, that we started asking ourselves as content and materials development, emerge from the understanding of what parents expect, but we wanted to make sure we shared these findings with teachers, with school administrators, as food for thought, and maybe even as a window of opportunity. So if you look, again, these are the bilingual education models proposed by the Ministry of Education in Colombia, but lots of these characteristics apply to most bilingual schools or schools that are only offering emphasis in English language teaching throughout Latin America. Understanding that parents don't really care about whether a teacher is native or non-native, but they only need assurance that their level of English is high. It makes us question where investment should go, what kinds of teachers should we hire, things like that. So that is why we wanted to share these findings with you, which we found truly and really interesting, because again, a lot of this ends up relating to the kind of evidence proof that we can provide parents with of the effectiveness of the model we have selected. And information, and based on this information, this is how we also help schools in Colombia and throughout Latin America to transition to more bilingual models, if you want to call them that. It comes from understanding expectations, and well, basically, this is the reason why we wanted to share the results of our findings with you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute just to be able to read the chat box in case you have any questions or any additional comments that you'd like to share with me here in the chat box. I am now able to read your comments. Again, the whole idea here was to share with you a little bit of what parent expectations on bilingual education are at the moment and what it implies for schools, what we are doing to meet and match those expectations. And a lot of it has to do with the evidence we can actually provide parents of the effectiveness of our method, the method we adopt for English teaching. And of course, this has to do with the framework of this whole conference assessment. What tools do we have that allow us to collect the evidence, the information that parents need to be able to see that what we're doing is working and that we're meeting this umbrella expectation they have when they register their students in a bilingual school. It certainly has to do a lot with the assessment methods and tools that we have as institutions to provide parents with evidence of the effectiveness of their children's learning process, right? I'm here if you have any questions, if you want to add any comments, and maybe even share with us what you do in your institutions to provide parents with this evidence. And I hope with the results of the survey that I showed you, I'd leave you with some questions to think of, whether the kind of evidence we're providing parents is actually the right one to meet their expectations. I don't know if any of you have any additional comments, any questions. Again, remember that we conducted the survey throughout the 18 countries in Latin America, from Mexico all the way down to Brazil. And it was very interesting to see how parents' expectations are fairly similar throughout the continent, even when we have countries where, like here, Colombia, maybe even Chile, where we started discussing bilingual education over 10 years ago, and we have national programs and national standards. And then on the other hand, you have countries who are younger to the concept of bilingual education, like Brazil, where it became policy, national policy, just recently. So it was really interesting to see that no matter how long we've discussed bilingual education, parents can't seem to come with a standardized definition. They can't seem to be able to define what they understand by bilingual education, but they do have very clear expectations on what they expect from schools when it comes to helping students become bilingual and effective users of the English language. We have a few minutes left only, so if any of you would like to share any comments, I can now read them in the chat. And if you'd like to learn some more about the solutions that we have through which we accompany schools in their transition to more bilingual models, I invite you to visit Richmond Solution. That is the Richmond program through which we accompany schools throughout a set of years to help them make these little changes and adjustments that are needed to meet parents, stakeholders, and different actors' expectations. If you look for Richmond Solution, you will be able to learn a little bit more about this program. We already have over 200,000 students throughout Latin America working on the Richmond Solution models. It's a community of over 600 schools, if I'm not mistaken, throughout Latin America as well, working with the Richmond Solution. And with the Richmond Solution, what we do is accompany schools throughout the process of transitioning to either a more bilingual model or making the adjustments necessary, not only to consolidate the bilingual education model, but also to implement the tools to provide parents with this evidence that they're so evidence and proof that they're so eager to get to validate that their students are actually becoming English speakers and bilingual. So my invitation is again for you to visit Richmond Solution if you want some more information on how we do this, how we accompany schools in the process of meeting expectations when it comes to bilingual education. Again, I'm here if you want to share any thoughts or comments. I can read them here in the chat box. And again, in the end, what we wanted to do was share our findings with you as food for thought, or maybe even as a window of opportunity if you're a school administrator or a teacher. I really hope you found the information relevant. And I want to thank you for having taken the time to join me in the session today. And well, I guess I only have to say that I really hope that you continue to enjoy the rest of the conference. So thank you very much for joining me today. And don't forget my invitation to learn a little bit more about the Richmond Solution if you're interested in us accompanying you to transition or consolidate your bilingual education model. So thank you. Thank you very much for having joined me today. I'll be around for another couple of minutes in case you have any other questions or want to share any other thoughts. So thank you very much. I'm going to put up my contact details in case you want to ask me more specific questions. Please allow me to share my screen again. You can contact me here in case you want more information and more details on what I shared with you today, or even specifically on the Richmond Solution. This is where you can find me.